guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Lauren. Today I am so excited for this video. I mentioned in a previous video, I think talking about small little palettes that I had my eyes on that, you know, they were reaching out, trying to touch me, trying to get me to buy them. Well, I mentioned some Lorac palettes, and specifically I mentioned the Fairytale Forest palette and kind of the whole 2021 holiday collection from Lorac, and I was like, maybe I should get it. I'm kind of thinking about it. What do you guys think? And so many of you guys were excited for that collection that I was just like, we got to do it for the channel. Of course, I really wanted these, but I decided to be that all-in bitch and get them. So that being said, I have every palette from the holiday collection. I bought all of these from Ulta. They were on the website like as a pre-thing, and then they finally went live. So I have the Fairytale Forest palette, and then along with this collection, there are these cutie little patooties, and these are 3 little mini 6-pan palettes. So we have the shade Withered Rose, which has a bit more of a neutral yet pink vibe. There is Mystic Oak, which is definitely giving some cool toned smoky vibes. And then Frosted Sequoia is what they're calling their like bronze palette, but I find this to be pretty neutral in terms of like warm and cool. So of course there will be timestamps down below so you can get to where you want to go. I should be doing looks with all of these palettes in different ways, and I'm going to be sectioning it by each palette. I think that will be the most organized way to do this. So definitely check the description box so you can get to where you want to go if you want to skip around. But honestly guys, I feel like I've been sleeping on Lorac. I was someone who was like so into freaking Lorac back in the day. I loved the big pro palettes. I had like almost all of them. I was on all the launches, and then I think as I got more and more into color, it just felt a little repetitive. It felt a little boring. There wasn't anything new, and I think that it's this mixture right now of me coming back around to some neutrals and being intrigued and loving it, but also I do feel like Lorac has kept the things that are really awesome about Lorac. Like, they haven't changed, man. Like, they're still in this really sleek pro packaging. I feel like they've really kept that. The mattes are the same. They're definitely still that powdery formula. I really enjoyed the mattes from Lorac in the past. They also do have some of those really beautiful shimmers, but I'm also finding that some of these have more textured shimmer, which I feel like is this updated awesome thing that I think is more popular, but also specifically, y'all know, more popular with me. So it was like we were together, things were going great, and then we were like, we need to go our separate ways. Maybe later in life we'll meet up, and I feel like it's later in life and we're meeting up, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we're best friends slash lovers now. So first impressions of like opening this and kind of comparing them to what I was hoping and expecting, I am very, very excited for these palettes. Some key features I want to note. First off, I love the size of these mini palettes. They are nice and tiny little 6-pans. When I'm telling you they're little, I mean this is the size of a NARS Duo. This is the size of like a Laura Mercier blush. Like, it is a very small palette for 6 pans to fit in. That being said, these are smaller pans, but I love that. I want small pans. I have so much eyeshadow. You guys know that. You probably have a lot of eyeshadow at home too. And so I love that they're giving us small amounts of product and they're charging us appropriately. I feel like these mini palettes retail for $15 a piece. I think that's really great. You are getting like a cardboard, no mirror packaging. Okay, I'm putting this in at the wrong time, way later on. I found out these do have mirrors. This just upped the value so much. I thought, oh, well, they're only 15 bucks. They don't have mirrors, that's okay. No, they do. They totally have mirrors. I do feel like you're getting some luxury quality though for $15. I just think it's the best of all the worlds of what I'm looking for and liking right now. I love how tiny it is. Unfortunately, these do not pop out, but in the bigger pans from Lorac, you can actually pop these palettes out. And I love that that kind of sticks with their pro theming and packaging for their brand. So all of these are magnetic, and you can flip this down and it opens up and you see all these little holes here. Those are where you can stick something in there and pop the pan out. And so that means as you use things up, you can replace shades. They do sell a few single shadows, definitely not the whole range, but I'm sure it's their most like popular colors. If you say finish one of them, you can buy just the insert and replace it if you'd like. I also love, of course, that I can then take these out, rearrange them the way I want to. That inspires me. And of course, if you buy into the Lorac universe, because I know there are a few more bigger palettes palettes like this out there. You can switch between all of those and create your own favorite palette from all the different shades, whatever you want to do. You guys know how that works. And again, price point on this palette retails for $35. That is amazing. I think that is just so great. If you can't tell, I'm super excited about them. I'm excited to like revisit Lorac, and I'm really happy so far with what I'm seeing and experiencing. I'm telling you, I've been into like those Charlotte Tilbury, the Natasha Denona, and I feel like these are on par, but way more affordable to me. Don't get me wrong, these are neutrals. If you're here for color, probably not for you, because these are serving like neutrals with the tiniest twist. It's like a half twist, a quarter twist, honestly, but stunning nonetheless, and I'm really into it. So I can't wait to show you. Let's just get into the Fairytale Forest palette first, and then we'll get into the minis. You guys seem to like when I described the colors as I swatched them, so I'm gonna do that for this video as well. So starting off with the Fairytale Forest palette, the first shade is called Birch, and it is a light, warm toned brown shade. It's quite light. It makes a good transition type shade on my skin tone. Next, we have the shade Oak, which is a couple shades darker than Birch, and this one's more of a neutral toned brown shade. Next, the shade Earth. Not really sure why it's called that, but this is basically a cream shade. There's this slight taupiness to it, maybe a cool tone to it, but it's essentially a cream shade. Next, we have the shade Rosewood. This name sounds familiar, so depending, this might be a shade that's in past palettes, but this is a really beautiful mauve-y kind of purpley pink shade. Definitely neutral though. Like when you're using this, it's not gonna pull super pink, super purple. It has those neutral leanings. Next is the shade Mushroom, and I find that this is a taupe shade. It's kind of gray, but there's a bit of like a warmth essentially coming from it, a little bit of like this tiny tinge of purple. And then last on the top row is the shade Fog, and this is more of like a true gray as opposed to Mushroom. Again, that leans a little bit more purple. Next, we're getting into our first sparkle. This shade is called North Star, and it is one of these like what I would call a chunkier or like more sparkly shade. It has like these PC shimmer to it. It is a cool toned like champagne with a slight pinkiness. Nothing about it like screams pink, but it's definitely not leaning gold. It is leaning more pink. Next, we have the shade, I believe you would say this Komorebi, and this is more of a golden champagne color. Texturally, this is more of a classic, to me, like Lorac metallic type shade. So it's really beautiful. It definitely has some shimmer, but it doesn't have that PC sparkle. This would be a great one for the brow bone, inner corner, anything like that. Next, we have the shade Enchanted. This one is one of the really beautiful ones. Again, it's more of that PC formula, and this is actually a duochrome, so it has a red base with this kind of golden green shimmer to it. I'm a sucker for that specific duochrome. It's a really, really beautiful one. Definitely one I think I'll use a lot in the palette. Next is the shade Butterfly, another duochrome. This one is a golden shade with a pink flip on it. It's really beautiful. I don't think this is like the most unique duochrome, but I do think it's really well done, quite beautiful. Again, more of that shimmery, sparkly formula as opposed to something more metallic. Next in the palette, this is the shade Wind, and this was what I was wearing on my eyes in the intro. This is a stunning like olive too, because it has a little bit of warmth and like a goldenness to it. It's so sultry, so beautiful. Again, more of that PC sparkly as opposed to like liquid metal formula, or even more of like a softer satin. It's just beautiful. Last in the middle row, this is a matte shade. It is a warm kind of terracotta type brown. It's called Redwood. Pretty apt name. I found actually that this shade didn't stay super warm on my eyes. Definitely something to just note. It didn't like blend out more and more orange. Instead, it definitely turned more brown. Moving on to the final row, the first shade in the last row is called Folklore, and this is a PC formula, and this is more of a golden champagne shade. It's very beautiful. I love it. So excited to use that. Next is the shade Pine. This is more of an actual metallic. It's a bit of a thicker formula, but it doesn't have that PC sparkle to it. This is like a really beautiful copper shade. Next is the shade Grove. Again, we're getting more of like a metallic type color, and this is a bronzy gold. So definitely more yellow than orange, unlike Pine. and doesn't have that PC sparkle, just a nice metallic shimmer. Then we have the shade Wildflower. This is a beautiful like reddy bronze. I find these colors tend to look a little bit deeper on my eyes than maybe I expect them to, but it's so stunning. I really love this kind of rosy brown bronze shade, especially in fall, but there's just something about it I find really like sexy and sultry on the eyes. Last shimmer in the palette, this is called Evergreen. This is a beautiful, more emerald, especially compared to Wind, which is more olive. This is one of those kind of black based emerald colors. It's not super PC and sparkly, but it does have that like normal metallic shine to it. It's really quite pretty. I used this on my outer corner today and I really liked the way it complemented that Wind olive color. And then last, this is the darkest matte in the palette, and this is called Woodland. This is a pretty neutral, if not cool toned leaning brown, which is really nice. Hopefully that helped you out with this palette, and let's move on to the actual like talk through demo of me and this eye look. I feel like I have only been doing green looks lately, but I definitely kind of want to focus in on this section. I mean, these are all beautiful and I think things I'll use every day, but for the sake of the tutorial and kind of demo, I want to dig into those. I'm first going to go in with the lightest matte, or one of the lighter mattes. Ooh, and they're powdery. They are Lorac. They're still Lorac there. I'm going to be blending that into the crease of my eye, and I'm doing the entire crease, front, back, you know, the whole shebang. Really just getting a nice base down. Yeah, lots and lots of kick up in the pan, so you know, which is typical of Lorac shadows if you've ever used them. Next, I think I'm just gonna go straight into this color. I mean, if I need to, I'll blend out with something different, but I just wanna start getting into deepening up. So I'm gonna go in with that more orangey shade first, orangey brown. It's quite dark, and I'm gonna be putting that into the outer corner. Really nice and pigmented there, but still feeling pretty easy to blend. And I'm keeping it on the outer corner, and then when I have less product, I'm blending into where we've laid down that first color and not taking it up quite as high so we can keep that blend. I feel like this color isn't turning up maybe as warm as I expect on the eye. It's kind of cooling down a little bit. Seems so warm there, but on the eye, not quite as warm. Still beautiful, just something I thought I'd note. I feel like that blended out really, really nicely. I'm like tempted to use this shade because it's so stunning, but this one's also so pretty. Oh, which one do I do? There's also the other green, all three of those. I mean, look at them. I think I'm gonna use the olive first and just see what happens. So I'm just taking my finger, I'm gonna lay that olive down on my lid and start blending into what we have laid down. Absolutely beautiful. I'm kind of just tapping as I'm getting into the crease. Just so stunning. I really love that. It's like a metallic, but it is more shimmery. So I find like as I'm like tapping it out, it blends out really easy and nice. I think I'm gonna take a little bit of the darker green on the outer corner just to punch that in a little, but I might like add a little bit more brown as well. And then in this upper portion, I'm gonna take the shade that I was like contemplating using, like up a little higher and just lightly. Okay, I think it's really pretty, super kind of smoky, fairytale forest vibes for sure. I definitely want to add a brow bone color. I'm gonna go with something that's a little less chunky, this one here, and that's gonna go on the brow. That's just kind of nice and subtle. I do want to beef up a little bit of that brown in the outer corner, that warm one we went in with. So I'm going to take that same brush. I'm just kind of beefing it up a little bit now that we kind of know what's going on. And I'm keeping it quite tight where I'm blending. I'm not like, you know, blending out a ton, just right here in this area. And then blending out from there, we're using that first color we used just to get the best fade. For the inner corner, I'm going to go in with this shade. It's a little bit more sparkly. We'll see how it picks up on a brush. These types tend to go on best with fingers, so I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. I'm gonna go in with a brown on my lower lash line for liner. I'm gonna first take the lighter shade. I'm like nervous to go in with that darker one because it did deepen up quite a bit, but I'm just gonna start blending that out and then going in with the warmer shade once it's, you know, a little more blended. I'm taking that lighter like gold that we use in this upper portion on the in-between of the inner corner and the lower lash line. All right, guys, I'm gonna add some mascara and I'll show you the final look. All right, guys, so here is the look all done. It is beautiful. It is sparkly. It's sultry. It's giving the fairy tale forest vibes, but I literally had no issues using this. There was the tiniest bit of fallout, but I feel like it's pretty normal for me. I don't know. I'm not bothered by it, but thought I would note it in case that's a really big turnoff for you. It was so easy to create this look, even with that darker matte, which sometimes I struggle with. Blending was so easy. The shimmers look beautiful, like so beautiful. I'm very happy so far. Like, this is my neutral dreams right now. Okay, anyway, I hope you guys like that look. And here's the look all zoomed out. It's so pretty. I feel like this is giving me everything that I really crave in like these luxury formulas that I talk about a lot. But this is $35. This is half the price of a midi palette, you know? And you're getting more shades. It's quite small and compact, even though it is a larger palette. And really, I think what the star of the show is, I mean, I love the mattes, but I really love this like newer, a little bit flakier shadow that has some just really pretty shimmer to it. That's not quite a solid foil metallic, but is definitely higher shine, higher sparkle than something that's satin. You guys know that's like my thing. It's a creamier formula than something kind of dry, but so far I'm really enjoying it, and I think it looked really great on the eyes. So can't wait to try this out more. That's my eye look for this one. And let's move on to some of the other palettes, some quick little demos and swatches. The first mini I want to start with is Winter Rose. This palette has 6 different shades in it. 3 of them are matte, 3 of them are shimmery. There are a few different formulas in this. So the first shade on the top row is a very pearly white. It is a pretty normal metallic. I find with this, it shines quite bright, but it doesn't have a super strong base to it. It almost kind of disappears. So that one's super pretty, gonna be really brilliant on that inner corner. The next shade on the top row is a really beautiful like duochrome color. It has a more pink base, but then it shines kind of a champagne, almost golden color. It's really beautiful. This one is one of those more PC sparkly shades. It's still very neutral. The flip on this is not super strong, but it is really pretty, especially if you like, neutrals. I think you'll really love this one. And then last on the top row, this is more of a satin type shade. It's a beautiful kind of, I call these colors rosewood because it is a bronze shade with a definite rosiness to it. This would be beautiful as a one shadow look all over the lid. That's it. Just put this on, you're good to go, get out the door. Love a color like that. It doesn't have any PC sparkle. Again, it's more of like a satin. Onto the bottom row, which is all matte. The first matte is a lighter neutral brown type color, kind of basic. The next shade is a really cool toned purpley mauve. It's definitely quite cool and definitely quite like mauvey purple, like a lilac almost with a gray to it. And then last in here is a darker matte brown. This one has a coolness to it as well. It's definitely going to be the thing to add some depth to this palette. And those are all the shades in the Winter Rose palette. I did real fast before we get into the look want to compare Winter Rose to Sparkling because I felt like, you know, online they maybe looked a little similar. Both of them have like this tendency to pull a little pink. So this is Winter Rose and this is Sparkling. I definitely think if you have one, you don't necessarily need the other. On the top is the Sparkling palette, which is, I believe, a part of the permanent line. And I think the biggest differences I can point out are the mattes are a lot lighter and you're getting your depth from that shimmery kind of purple shade. I do find the rosy colors to be quite similar, maybe a little bit different in formula and texture, but color-wise very similar. Same with even the like lighter champagnes. They're very similar, but maybe a little bit different in color, a little bit different in texture. There are 2 mattes that are the same, that kind of neutral brown and that mauve shade. The mauve is like an exact spot on dupe. So definitely don't think you need both. I think I personally prefer actually the Winter Rose one because I think you're getting a little bit more variety since the mattes in the other one, 2 of them are kind of similar. For this look, I took that mauve shade and I started blending this into my crease. I put it in the full crease, front and back. I'm doing a halo eye, so I really wanted to build that color up. Then I went in with the shimmery kind of rosewood color and I started building that up on the inner and outer corner. This is a shimmer, but it definitely still built up the depth that I wanted. I took the light shimmery shade on the brow bone and just blended that out. And then I took the rose color and I put that on the center of my eye kind of as that spotlight to add some light to the center of the eye. And then I went back in with that brown shimmer so that I could just add some more depth and really make that center of the lid pop. I lined my lids with some brown liner from Charlotte Tilbury, and then I smudged that out with that same shimmery brown. Pretty simple. Put that same shimmery color on the inner corner that I did on the brow bone, and I really love the way this turned out. Super simple, super pretty. I love these kind of rosy pinks on me. They look great. The next mini palette is called Frosted Sequoia. This one they call like their bronze one. There's some warm tones that don't lean too warm, but also I feel like you could go a little cool if you wanted. This one also has 3 mattes and then 3 shimmers in it. So starting with the top row, this is a just matte cream shade. Like basic kind of pink toned, I guess, of a cream, but just a matte cream. Next, we have another one of those like neutral browns. This is like a mid-tone neutral brown. Like if there were an award for mediocrity, this would probably be it. Still beautiful. I think it works for a lot of looks, but that's what it is. And then the last matte shade on the top is another one of those cool browns. I find this is looking like almost all of the other cool browns we've been seeing. This one might have a little bit more purple in it than some of the other ones. They're technically different, but I feel like translation-wise, they're gonna look very similar on the eyes. Moving on to the second row, the first shade in here is a really beautiful bronze. This is a pretty neutral bronze, so it's not leaning too warm, but if you put it next to warm tones, it would look cool. If you put it next to cool tones, it would look warm, that type of thing. It's in a nice like metallic formula. No like PC sparkle though. The next shade is a more, like it's technically more golden of a bronze, so it's not quite giving the depth when the sun isn't touching it. This one also is a bit more of a thicker formula. It's a little bit more almost metallic, and it can be PC if you wanted it. It's very similar. I think they could have definitely changed up the colors a little bit more between the two. And then last in here is a beautiful like slatey kind of gray. I find as you blend this out, it does look more taupe and it doesn't look too stark of a cool toned. I think this would make a really beautiful one shadow look. And you could keep it a little bit more smoky but daytime, or turn the smoke all the way up, make something a little bit more date night or night time appropriate. So I think this is beautiful for a little mini palette. I'm pretty dang happy with it. I'm not going to compare it to Simmering because I don't find that they're similar enough. This one's a lot more warm toned. And of course, I'm going to show you a look that I did with that. All right, so first for this look, I took the cream shade and I was really just setting my primer. I used a little bit of a different primer for this one because I used my other one up. Then I took that medium brown and I'm just blending that all over my crease. I'm being kind of sloppy. It's okay if it gets on the lid because I go in with that center like golden bronze and that's going everywhere. I'm blending that up. I'm blending that over. It's everywhere on my lid. I love doing that with shimmers. I took a little bit more of that brown on the outer corner just to add a little bit of depth out there. And then I went in with a different shimmer from the Forest palette and just blended that on my brow bone. I wanted something golden. I thought that would complement it well. And I also put it on my inner corner. Same Charlotte Tilbury eyeliner, just blending a little bit of that. And I just smudged it out, no shadow. And then mascara. So that's the final look. So simple. This is like an everyday look for me. Bright, sunny, easy, simple, love it. The last mini palette here is Mystic Oak. This is definitely your cool tone kind of smoky eye palette. This one's a little bit different though. There are 4 shimmers and 2 mattes in here. First row, top shade. This is a PC sparkly type color. It looks like it's just gonna be a classic like champagne, but it actually has a pink duochrome to it. It's a slight shift. I find that this one, although it's more of that PC formula, doesn't have a ton of sparkle or even like a ton of shine as I maybe would expect. Next, this is a beautiful silver shade. This is one of those PC sparkly shadows. Really into this color. I think this would be great as a one shadow look for something really simple. There's this base to it that is more taupey, and then the top of it is a little bit more cool tone shimmer silver type shade, and I feel like that would look so good just all over the lid, kind of a wet look. Next in the top row, this is a more warm leaning light brown shade. For my skin tone, this would be something like a transition type color. Next on the bottom row, this is a more satin gray. It's like a nice smoky color. For being more of a satin, I do find this has this like really pretty sparkle to it. I think this would be another great one, especially in the winter or just anytime, like all over the lid as something smoky and kind of sexy. Next, the last shimmer is one of my favorite types of colors to wear as, again, a single shadow look. This is one of those like taupey bronze type shades. It's like a taupe with this warmth to it, and I think it's stunning. Again, a nice one for every day and just wearing all by itself. That's how I would wear that one. And then last, we have a matte black. So just kind of simple matte black. Definitely a pretty basic palette. You might have something like this already in your collection depending on what you have. I think that it's really pretty. I'm excited to have it, but you'll have to decide, of course, as with everything, if this is something that would be good for your collection. And of course, let me show you the eye look I decided to do. All right, so first for my look, I decided to take that center shade and just taking a shader brush and really packing that on, starting to blend it out a little bit, but really just getting that color on the lid first. Then I took a fluffy brush and just blended that out to soften the edges a bit. I also decided to go in with that matte brown so that I could blend it out and just get a better blend. I took that light shade on the brow bone. I didn't find it went on that well with a brush, so I later went in with my finger for my inner corner and just kind of tapped it on, and I feel like that helped a lot better. Then I took that really shimmery, kind of glittery color that I used as like a topper. So pretty, love that shade. Then I went back in with that first color, kind of deepened up just a little that outer corner, just added a little depth. Then I went in with like a purple eyeliner, and I then smudged that out with that taupey shade just to add something a little more sultry. And that is the look. This is like another one that's like everyday for me. I really wanted to create things that I would actually wear, so I hope you enjoyed those. All right, guys, we're here at the end of the video. I wanted to give you some more thought out thoughts on the palettes as I've used them. It is the next day. I've written out some of my thoughts, and I'm gonna kind of make a pros and cons list so you guys can have some stuff to consider. So some overall thoughts. I think this is a beautiful palette. I'm very happy with my purchase overall. It's definitely neutral though. Everything is neutral. I feel like maybe from seeing it online, I was thinking maybe it'd have just a little bit more color than it does, but really these are just like supple, beautiful neutrals with like 2 pops of green and this kind of pinky shade, but that still pulls kind of neutral as well. So I definitely want you guys to know that like you're not getting jewel tones in here, you're really getting neutrals. I also want to note that if you get this palette and you get all the minis, you're probably going to have some repeat shades, whether that's like the dark brown type shade. Technically there might be a difference, but they're basically the same. There are some like lighter shades as well. I think all of those make sense if you're buying individual palettes, but if you're buying multiple individual palettes, you might be getting some repeats there, especially too with some of the champagne shades, also the bronzes and that type of stuff. I just realized having all the palettes that I do have, there are things that are very similar, and I personally don't mind that. It doesn't make me like regret, especially because obviously I'm doing the review to let you guys know my thoughts, which is like another consideration for me when I even buy makeup in the first place. But for you at home, if you don't want like repeats like that, it's just something to consider. I think that was especially apparent between the shimmering palette and the winter rose. Although they do have differences, there are a couple shades in here that are basically identical or very, very similar, just maybe a slightly different finish. I really enjoy the formula on all of these. I find with the mattes that they're super blendable, like they just blend out very, very easily, and they're definitely a matte that I like to work with. They are a little powdery in the pan, but I find just blending them on is really easy, building them up is really easy, and I honestly feel like it's in stark contrast with Natasha Denona's mattes or even Pat McGrath mattes. Like I find them just easier to work with for me and my normal like way of working and style and preference and all that. So that I really like. When it comes to the shimmers, I think they're really beautiful. I think they're really luxe. Some of the flakier shades definitely have fallout. I got fallout quite a bit on some of my looks. I don't particularly mind that, but I know a lot of you guys don't like it. I never used a glitter glue though, so that's always something you could do to kind of stop that from happening. I find with the shimmer formulas, whether it's that really flaky type sparkly shades or more of the satins, it just reminds me of a really nice luxe formula, something that I've been enjoying from Natasha Denona, from Charlotte Tilbury. And so that makes me really excited, especially considering the price of these. $35 for this palette, $15 for the small palettes. That's pretty nice to me. Also, the small palettes do have mirrors. I was mistaken about that initially, which I think is just such a nice bonus, especially for travel. Obviously though, with these, you are not getting the packaging though. Like, you're getting pretty inexpensive little cardboard packaging here. There's nothing that luxe about it. It's definitely more that sleek pro style. It doesn't have a weight to it. And I find with this packaging specifically, it does get dirty. So if you've had past Lorac Pro palettes, you know, like I've had these for 3 seconds, it feels like, and they're already looking a little worn. Definitely something to consider. I don't feel like there's a ton of product in these pans, so there is something with that. I think that's how they can make the price so affordable. I personally don't mind that because I don't tend to use the same palette every single day. You guys know I have a big makeup collection. I guess what I'm saying there is I wouldn't be surprised if you use this pretty consistently that you would hit pan pretty fast in some of these shades. But again, I don't really mind that. I like actually using my makeup, and I do like that the price point reflects that. Another pro to me that makes me really excited is the fact that in these larger palettes you can take the pans out and rearrange them. I think that's just such a fun thing. You guys know that's such a bonus on any of my palettes, that they could turn into singles if I wanted them to. I really wish, and I think it's a missed opportunity, that the mini palettes don't do that. I really wish that they did, because I would love to create my own custom 6 pans to bring with me and travel with. That being said, last kind of thoughts that I wanted to bring up, I really hope that going into the future we see more things kind of like this Fairytale palette, but even pushed a little bit more. I know that they are doing a lot of neutrals, and don't get me wrong, I love them. I'm so excited to have these beautiful, supple, just amazing neutrals in my collection. I feel like this really did fill a big hole that I feel like I had in my collection. So I'm very happy with that. But moving forward, I really hope that some of the color stories that start coming out are a little bit more targeted, you know, kind of how Natasha Denona does. Like, I'd love to see something that's more like the Love palette, something like that. I mean, it doesn't have to be exactly, but I'm just saying it leans toward actually more pinks and maybe has some neutrals in it still, but does actually offer some of those punchier colors. I think that is something that they're missing in their line. They have like a cool palette, they have a warmer toned palette, they now have this Fairytale, which offers something, and there's a little bit more vision behind it besides just like warm neutrals. But I really hope that going forward they have a little bit more concept with their palettes that are like this, that they keep them where you can take them out, and that the color stories start, you know, going more purple, or I don't know, it doesn't matter which way they go. I would just love to see more color or more vision in that way, because if not, I can see that it's going to be hard for me to justify buying another palette that has a lot of the similar neutrals that I already have in this, or that I have in these ones, even if the formula is great, even if I think that it will be used, if I already have those things from the same brand. You know what I mean? That's just something. And also I would love to have more options in color when it comes to the pans that I can take out, so that I can actually start customizing my own palettes, you know? Overall, I'm very happy. My eye look yesterday, the one that was from the Mystic Oak palette with this really beautiful like sparkly shade, like this was just such a stunning look. I was taking my makeup off last night and I was like, oh my gosh, this look is just beautiful. The way that these textures work, the way that I'm inspired to use them, it definitely gives me that kind of like Hollywood red carpet vibe, you know, where there's something about it that's glamorous, but it isn't as smoky as maybe you think it'd be. So you guys know the type of looks that I like to do. You saw them in this video. So I hope that this was helpful. I hope this gave you some insight onto what the colors actually are, if these palettes are going to be right for you or a good pickup or not. I'd love to know what your thoughts on the palettes are. So many of you, like I said you were excited about this, or at least interested to know my thoughts, and I hope this will help you in your decision whether you get it or don't. And last, I really hope you enjoyed the formatting. I hope so. I really tried to put a lot of looks in here and all that, so it's kind of a behemoth of a video. But honestly, what videos of mine aren't? They're always long as hell. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having an amazing day, and other than that, I will see you in the next video. Bye guys.